I gotta run. Hopefully, not have them come off. Hey y'all, so I'm home for Labor Day weekend, and a couple weeks back I shot a video that was supposed to teach y'all how to fish offshore from the bank and how you can find fish deep from the shore. And the video actually turned out pretty well as far as fish catches go, but I was still using the old waterproof case on my GoPro and I didn't have my big camera yet, so the audio quality and the video quality wasn't really up to par. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take you back to the same places I caught those fish and just kind of reshoot the process of how I found those fish out deep, the tactics I used to locate fish offshore from the bank, and hopefully give you some weapons that you can use in your local lake to catch more fish and bigger fish this summer. So the best way to find offshore structure on the lake that doesn't have topo maps like an avionics is to actually cast around and feel for the structure. Now the way I do that is actually using a Carolina rig. So I'll show you on my GoPro what that looks like. So here's my Carolina rig that I use. I use 65-pound braided line for my main line, a 1-ounce Tungsten Strike King Carolina rig weight, a bead, a brass stopper, and then a swivel. To that I tie a 12-pound leader, about 3 feet long, and then I just tie it to whatever hook I want to use. So the reason I'm using braided line is because braid is really sensitive and transmits a lot of vibration back to your rod, and then the tungsten also improves your feel of the structure. Okay, so I'm here at my first offshore spot. It looks like there's a lot of people out here fishing today, but the first thing I want to do is determine the depth of water that's actually out in front of me. The way I do that is I use my fall rate of my bait to gauge the depth. So what I mean by that is I want to know how far this sinker falls in 1 second. So I'm just going to pitch this bait out in front of me. Looks like it's about 3 to 4 feet of water right out in front. And just in a second, 1,000. I'd say it falls about 4 feet in a second, this 1-ounce sinker. So now that I know the fall rate of this sinker, what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to just cast it out here and then count down, whoops, and just kind of count down how long it takes to fall. So 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. So probably about 3 or 4 seconds to fall. So I'm estimating it's about 10 to 12 feet out there at the end of my cast, which isn't too bad. I didn't get a full cast because of that backlash, but seems like pretty good depth. And when I was fishing this spot a couple weeks ago, I realized that as I move further down this bank, it actually gets a little bit deeper. And it looks like a creek channel probably swings in right along the shore. So when I actually was casting out in this area where I found the brush top where I was catching my fish, I found that the water was probably anywhere from 12 to 17 feet deep. So once I determine the depth of water I'm fishing, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use this Carolina rig weight, this tungsten Carolina rig weight, and this braided line to feel for irregularities on the bottom. I want to look for areas maybe where it transitions from a mud or soft bottom to a hard bottom, maybe look for a shell bed or even a brush pile. And in the case of the spot I caught those fish last week, I actually found a brush top out here using this Carolina rig. So what I did is I fired that thing out there as far as I could, let it sink down to the bottom. That fell for about 5 seconds. So it's probably about 15 to 18 feet out there. And then I just started slowly dragging that worm back to the bottom, feeling for any irregularities, anything different. Actually right there, I'm in a brush top right now. So I'm in a little bit of brush. And now that I've found a brush top, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to switch up from this worm and this Carolina rig and actually go to a Texas rig 10-inch worm, maybe a Swimbait or a big spinnerbait. So let's roll a clip of actually a couple weeks ago where I caught a really good fish using a Swimbait off this exact brush pile. Slow rolling that swim bait back to the boat. Hooked up with a nice one here. swimming right at me. So there you go. There's a nice 3.5 pounder on that Strike King Shadalicious Swimbait. And what I did is I found a brush pile out off the shore there, and it was about 15 to 16 feet of water with that Carolina rig, and broke off, got a bite with the worm, broke off a worm in the brush pile. I was getting frustrated with the worm, so wanted to throw something that wasn't getting hung up as much. And so this time of year, it's late summer, beginning of August, and these fish like to suspend and chase bait fish around brush piles, drop off, stuff like that. So I threw this big swim bait, slow rolling it in about 15 foot of water to see if I can get a bite. And as you can see, this nice healthy bass got it, and we're gonna let him go. There it goes. So I'm here at the next lake I'm fishing, and I just want to show you guys kind of how I found some fish, and I'll roll you a really cool clip of me catching a big bass off this dock. So let's get started. So I'm here at another little lake, and I'm at this public fishing pier. As you can see, it sticks pretty far out in the middle of this lake, and public fishing piers and docks are one of the best ways to get access to deep water. There's not really any spots on this lake other than right here where I can actually fish any water that's deeper than maybe 7 or 8 feet. So what I did is I took that big Carolina rig again, and maybe I'll roll a clip of me just kind of casting it out. Somebody else had the same idea I did. A nice little Carolina rig caught by a Carolina rig. But what I was actually able to find is a brush pile right out here. So for this brush pile, I found it with that Carolina rig, and then I lined myself up with the corner of this dock and then a tree that is across on the opposite shore. So what I do is I stand at this one corner of the dock, and then I make that same cast at that tree every time, and it allows me to hit that spot where that brush pile is on every cast and not have to waste time searching for it, casting left and right and missing. Tiny bit of the front moving through, which not sure what that'll do to the fish, but probably won't do much considering it's pretty small. It's really just some clouds. Didn't hurt the fish though. Oh, that's a big one. Giant. I'm on the lane, sucker. I'm gonna have to bring her on this side of the dock. Don't jump off, baby. Okay, so what I gotta do, I gotta bring him over here. I gotta run. Hopefully, not have him come off. I'm gonna have to jump over this. Now I'm gonna have to drag him through this grass. Oh. Come on now, fish. Oh. And, oh, there we go. Now that's a fish. It's a solid 4.5 pounder off that brush top we found again. Just using that Carolina rig weight. We lost a bunch of fish today. Had some issues with break-offs, but caught one nice one on the swim bait. Caught this amazing fish. I didn't think about how I was going to get the fish up to the bank once I hooked it, but I guess it all worked out. So I'm gonna release this beautiful fish, probably I'd say 4 3/4, probably not 5, but it is a beauty. Sorry for dragging you around town, girl, but we're gonna let you go big girl. So one of the best pieces of cover you can actually find off of public piers and just around offshore using that big Carolina rig weight, especially in the late summertime, is brush piles. Brush piles hold a lot of fish in the late summer and in the early fall time of the year, especially in like September, October. They get really good. And a lot of times when I'm fishing brush piles, I find I get the majority of my strikes in the first 5 casts. And I actually missed a fish the first time I fished this place and left after breaking off a couple times and things like that. And then came back a little bit later in the day and on my first cast caught that really good fish. So it was really a timing thing. I fished it at about 10 o'clock in the morning and then came back around 3 in the afternoon and actually caught a fish. So sometimes on these offshore spots, it's all about timing. It's not always about coming up, finding a spot, and then catching fish your first cast. Sometimes you have to hit the place 4 or 5 times throughout the day at different times of the day to get a bite. And so what I would probably do if I had a few more spots to fish, which I don't, I'd probably try to run 2 or 3 or 4 of these brush tops and rotate them out. Unfortunately, this is the only brush top that I found the entire time I was searching for stuff out here. I fished all off this, I cast that Carolina rig off this entire boat dock. I walked down that entire shoreline, all over there, around the corner, and even off this road over here, casting that Carolina rig, and I didn't find anything. Only spot I found was right here. So a lot of times you might search for hours and not find a spot to fish. And a lot of people might get discouraged by that and they might kind of give up and quit. But I'm telling you, if you stick with it, if you have the patience and the confidence to just go out here and just throw that big Carolina rig weight around, look for brush tops, look for hard spots in the bottom, you're gonna get rewarded by big fish. Guys, that's it. Didn't catch any fish today, but caught some last time. I think these higher water levels of both these lakes from all this flooding has actually driven the fish a little bit shallower than they were when I was here 2 weeks ago. But nonetheless, I hope y'all learned something today about fishing offshore from the bank, and hopefully you can use some of these tips to catch some more fish next time you go fishing your home lake. So hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time. Could be a good way to catch them too today with all the sun, and there's a lot of grass that has some good water in it. Like that one. So, a little bonus fish for you guys. I don't know. Just finished filming that offshore video and caught a little fish. So yeah, I just got done refilming that video of me fishing off this dock where I caught that big one. And about 2.5 weeks ago, those fish were offshore in those brush tops. But the conditions have changed since then. The water's come up probably about 1 foot. There's a lot more shallow grass in the water, and there's probably a lot of fish that were in those brush tops that moved up to the shallow cover and around these docks. So, like I always say, you gotta fish the moment. Don't let any preconceived notions affect your fishing, and I was just really trying to refilm that video, but that whole time I was looking at this grass and I was like, this stuff looks really good. I want to go pitch it or punch it or something like that. So, came over here, just made a couple casts and caught a fish.